Right, so I am now going to do the real-time walkthrough of the homework bit. That's adding the columns and beams. And just remember, you've got a 9 or 3x3 grid for the core. That's concrete. And then we've got some other metal or steel columns to go in. Now, what I have done, if I just go to the beam, because I'm going to span, I've thought about this a little bit, and I've got a couple of beams. So I went to the load family and I went to the structural framing and then steel, and then chose the British Standard steel option. And then I went for universal beam. Okay, so I clicked on that, said open. And what this does is brings up this spreadsheet. So you've got a huge amount of selection. So there's loads and loads and loads of different types of steel beam. And as we sort of move down, we get, this is the depth of the beam. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper. The width alters, and so does the weight. So I chose then something like a 457 by 152 by 50 by 74 or something like that. I can't quite remember. And as I mentioned before, these values are just sort of indicative values. They're not the actual values of the things, because we can see we've got the width value there, we've got the height value in centimeters, so it's 449, and it's called a 457. So they don't quite tally through, but never mind. That's the way that these things are working. And also, if you're really interested in the structural side of things, then each of these beams has its moment of inertia, its moment of inertia on its weak axis, its elastic modulus, all stuff that I have no idea what it means, but I'm sure that if you are interested in that sort of stuff, then it's all there for you. Okay, so I chose one more of these because I want a deeper beam to span a further distance. And as far as my columns go, so on the structural tab, columns, I have got the concrete ones, and I'll just stick with this universal column 305 by 305 by 97. That's going to be absolutely fine. It's probably a bit over spec for what we need, but anyway. So I'm going to go to the ground floor. And I'm going to start off by putting the concrete core in, and I think I'm going to choose this bit here. So first up, I'm going to choose my column. I'm going to make sure that it goes up to the first floor, so level 2, the first floor. And I'm going to choose the 450 by 450. And I'm then going to use the at grid. So I'm going to make sure that it's the vertical, not the slanted. And choose at grids and just click this number of grids, and so you can see the intersections. It doesn't pick all of the positions of the grids, it's just the intersections, and then I must click on the green tick. So that's then put those columns in. I'm then going to swap over to the UC, that one there, and then I'm going to pick this one. So I need 11 more, in fact 12, because I'm going to get rid of this one in the middle. So I need 12 more columns. So that's one there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it's 9, 10, 11. And I've got 9. Let's get rid of this one. Might be easier if I go into 3D because I can't really see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So if I get rid of this one then, and oh, there we go. I had one there, which I don't want one there. I'm going to have them coming this way. I must be painful for you listening to me think aloud. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I've got 3 more to position. Let's go back to the ground floor. So that's going to be 18. And I might as well pick that one and that one, 18, 19, 20. So I'm going to right click, create similar, and then put one there. put one there, and put one there. Okay, so that's now what we've got. So we've got this arrangement. So this is my core. If I turn the shadows off, it might be a little bit easier. So that's this little icon down here. So this is the core. There'll be concrete walls in between that, and then I've got sort of coming off that some areas outside. Now this might be, some of this will be double story, triple story, some of it will be double story, some of it will be ground level. So you don't have to continue these columns all the way up to the top. Next up, I'm going to put the beams in. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do it in 3D, because it might be a little bit easier for you to see. So I'm going to choose on the structure tab, beam, and we'll start off with my universal beams. So in fact, I don't need the bigger one unless I use it for this one here. And I'm going to make sure that 3D snapping is checked on. Okay, so you need to make sure that 3D snapping is turned on. If you don't have it turned on, then you need to make sure that you've got the ground plane set. So this would have to be first floor, and then it would snap to the tops of these ones. But sometimes when you're in 3D, 3D snapping just helps a little bit. So I'm going to come from this point to that point, and then from that point to this point. And I'm going to probably sort of stop the video and restart it after I've finished, because you get a sense of how these things go in. And notice they don't look quite right at the moment, so I'll show you how to resolve that next. But you want to grab sort of there's 2 points to this. There's an end point and there's the circle, which is the load point. Okay, so that's the bit for a structural column. You want to make sure that it gets onto the round point. It doesn't really matter for this, but anyway. So what I'm going to do is pause this for a little second and just finish off putting my steel bits in here. I'll put the deeper one in for these bits, and I'll put the concrete ones in around here, and then I'll sort of restart it and show you what the next step is. Okay, so that's that done. Now I've changed the level of detail just to show you a little thing that might happen, just in case. I certainly wouldn't be aware of it because I haven't explained it yet. But down the bottom on this sort of view control bar thing down here, there's this icon at the bottom, detail level. There's 3 levels of detail: coarse, medium, and fine. And at coarse level, the steel columns and beams look like sticks. And it is kind of useful when you are positioning beams in sort of 3D that you set it to the coarse level, because it's much easier to attach the beams to. It's much easier to find that sort of end point that we're looking for. When I want to change it back to the column looking column and the beam looking beam, then I just change this to medium. Fine is not going to do much more. But you can see that the checker plate just changes ever so slightly. But medium is absolutely fine for what we need. Okay, so we've got some instances there where these things don't connect. And another thing that you need to be aware of is if I want to rotate around sort of this junction to have a better look at it, if I select the column first, and then I put my finger, my right index finger on the wheel of the mouse, press that down, and my left index finger is on the shift key. Now I'm rotating around the object that I've selected. Okay, so it's a much, much easier way to navigate, especially when you're zooming close to something. So we can see that this column, or this beam should I say, is attached to that one there. But these ones don't meet this bit, and these ones don't meet this bit. And that's all to do with the reference on it here. So if I select this column, don't pull these things, because that does a different thing altogether. The change reference, if I click on change reference, then we get this box around the column, and also we've got these plates here. So with this one, I clicked on change reference. Now I click on this edge, and that's going to come into that edge. And I can do a similar thing with this, change reference, and click there. As far as the modeling goes, as far as the structure goes, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. You can still do an analytical sort of structural analysis on it. But as far as the way it looks, then in reality, you might have a plate welded to the side here, and then this bolted on, sort of a moment connection. Or you can bolt them through this by having plates welded onto the sort of web. It's not the flange, this is the web, these are the flanges, of the column, and then they will sort of bolt through onto this thing. Okay, so there's all sorts of different ways of doing these connections, but I can leave that up to the experts. But that's a way of tidying up those connections as well. So we've got the ground floor columns up to the first floor. So this is where I can put my first floor. Now the first floor outline is going to come round here. There'll be stairs in there as well, and all sorts of other bits and pieces. The core is going to go up to the top. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is show you a little shortcut. Instead of then going to the first floor and positioning the columns and beams, we can just grab what we've created and copy these objects and then align them to other levels. So make sure you do a sort of a window grab, not the crossing grab. If you do the crossing grab, everything gets selected. You want to just come around this way and try and get as much in as you possibly can. Just missing these 3 columns here. So I'm holding the control key down on my keyboard and then click, click, click. That's got those 3. So what I'm now going to do is click on this one here, copy to clipboard. So it's Control C, the standard Windows keyboard shortcut. And now we're going to go to paste, and paste aligned to selected levels. And you'd think that we'd want to go first, second, and roof. But in fact, we just want to go second, and then Control key, hold down, second and roof, and then say OK. And then that just copies those ones up the levels, because we've already got one up to the first floor. So if we don't want the first floor, and there you go. It's a bit counterintuitive as to what's going on there, but that's the way it works. So what I'm going to do with this bit, I'm going to have a kind of a deck out here, probably first floor, and then I'm going to have an upper floor for these. So I'm going to just click that, this. In fact, I could do that. Just want to make sure I don't grab any of the grid lines or anything else. So that's the bits that I don't want this one. So that's a shift. If you hold your finger on the shift key, you get a minus sign on the key on the cursor. So I can deselect that one. And then I'm going to do the same thing, copy to clipboard, paste aligned to selected levels. And this one is just going to be the second floor. So I'm pasting up to the second floor. And that's, I think, will be sufficient structure. Oh, there's one more thing I didn't do, and that's put a piece across here, because I want to link these 2 bits. So I'm going to put a piece of steel in there. So beam, and this is my slightly longer beam. This is my 457 by 152 by 74. 3D snapping. This level is going to be fine, and then I can click across there, and I can click from point to point there, and that's going to be sort of my structure. And then from that I can start adding lots of other bits and pieces. Okay, so that's a little whiz through on how we can sort of quickly build our structure in the software. And we can kind of put the shadows back on if we really want to see some shadow settings on this. So there you go. That's not accurate shadows, but we'll cover that later on. But it's taking shape. Okay, so any questions, feel free to ask. If you get stuck with anything, then again, just drop me a line or stick it onto the chat, and we can resolve it together.